Up next is the story of one of the most well-known weird aircraft of World War II. As early as in the late 1930s, aircraft makers realized that they had squeezed almost everything they could from a conventional single-piston engine prop monoplane design. What were their options? They could maximize the propeller's efficiency, for instance, by using contra-rotating propellers like the ones used on the British Seafire. They could tinker with the engine, creating complex contraptions like the ones that were installed on the Super Corsair. There were some things to do, some things to improve, but all that could only do so much. The industry needed a breakthrough, and on the cusp of the 1930s and 1940s, a breakthrough it had. Aircraft designers of the world discovered the jet engine. But let's imagine that the development of the jet turbine was delayed just for half a year. Let's say Frank Whittle was sick, and Anselm Franz dropped the project. What would that mean? No Meteors, no Schwalbes. What would the aircraft of the late war period look like then? There is no if in history, of course. But lucky for us, there is a completely legitimate way to take a peek into this kind of parallel reality. We just have to look at what was happening in a country that didn't get jet engines until it was too late, and which desperately needed any kind of upper hand in its bitter fight for air supremacy. We're talking about Japan. No jet engines? Okay, then the Japanese had to come up with something else. That's where the unusual designs like the J7W1 came into play. On a conventional plane, the part of the wing behind the propeller doesn't generate any lift to the turbulence created by the propeller. This makes the aircraft less efficient. Let's switch to a pusher configuration then. Put the propeller in the back, so that our aircraft flies faster with an engine of equal power. There are some disadvantages, of course. For example, it's considerably harder to land or take off on this kind of machine. Most importantly, though, the J7W1 could even out the odds in a desperate fight against American B-29s. So that was all worth it. Not to mention that this aircraft could literally break the B-29 in half with a barrage from its 4 nose-mounted 30mm cannons. The engine was in the back, so nothing stopped the Japanese from going all out with forward-firing armaments. To solve the problem with nosing over while landing or taking off, the J7W1 was outfitted with nose landing gear. The cooling for a powerful engine was provided by long, narrow intakes on the side of the fuselage. The engine itself drove a 6-bladed propeller via an extension shaft. In the future, the conventional piston engine could be replaced with a gas turbine. And then, who knows, maybe even retrofitted with a turbojet. That's roughly how it went in the head of Lieutenant Commander Masayoshi Tsuruno, a pilot and engineer who came up with this idea in the summer of 1942. The Japanese military was suitably impressed, and the Kyushu Aircraft Country was asked to design a canard interceptor around Tsuruno's concept, the first plane of this type, called Shinden, or Magnificent Lightning, was built in the spring of 1945. Getting the machine in fully flight-worthy condition proved difficult. That's why the prototype took to the air only on the 3rd of August. There were still some deficiencies: considerable flutter of the propeller blades, vibration in the extended drive shaft, and, well, it was a very unusual bird to fly. All of this, of course, could be dealt with. But on the 6th of August, Hiroshima happened. In the early hours of the 9th of August, Tsuruno was getting his plane ready for takeoff when the sky in the south suddenly changed its colors. For a split second, it was white, as if there was a huge camera taking a photo with a flash on. Sadly, it was no camera. The atomic blast of Nagasaki could be seen from the neighboring prefectures. The very same day, the Soviet Union declared war on the Empire of Japan, and it was over. Japan surrendered to the Allies. The world entered a new era. and the door to the parallel dimension, where there were no jet engines, remained forever closed.